Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Doomsday Clock, issue number 11. This is going to have to be a spoilers review. Am I spoiling everything? Nah, man, because I haven't read this comic book in freaking forever. Can't remember when issue 10 came out, but I remember enough that I was reading this comic book going, holy crap. And suddenly, not just Rebirth makes sense. No. The entire multiverse and every single crisis starts to make sense. Yeah, I guess I should have expected Jeff Johns was going to do something like this, because who the hell else could? Wow. This almost makes it worth the delays. Let's get talking about who made this comic book. Talk about the comic book itself, page by page, my peeps. So we got Jeff Johns as the writer, Gary Frank is the illustrator, Brad Anderson on colors, Rob Lay doing the letters, Amy Brockway Metcalf doing the back matter design, and Gary Frank and Brad Anderson doing the cover and variant cover. And of course, Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons created The Watchmen. Thank you so much, Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons. And I hope that you guys aren't too pissed that these guys have come along and messed with your work. Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, and that's really important in this issue, because it turns out that Superman really is the freaking linchpin of everything. No, make no mistake. Look, DC is constantly, and why not, constantly always propagating Batman. Why? Because we all want more Batman. Superman was the first real superhero. Superpowered superhero, you know what I'm saying? Not retroactively or anything. And Batman came along not too long afterwards, but he was still an imitation of Superman, just on the street level. And still, we love Batman, and he's in everything. There are more appearances of Batman in comic books than any other character in any company, past or present. That being said, Batman takes a straight back seat to how awesome Superman is in this comic book. And by awesome, I actually mean crucial. Superman is the most important character in this universe, as I guess you would have to say that Dr. Manhattan is the most important character in his universe. Let's get talking about this book page by page. I love that the first panel is actually the main cover of this comic book. I think that's just so perfect. Batman is in a missile silo, and he's taking down some fools who are trying to send some nukes over to Russia and whatnot and start the next nuclear war. What do you call it? Batman's getting overwhelmed, but he's Batman, so he's cool. But in the meantime, he's still going to wind up being charged with treason. Alfred is looking at the book, that the journal that Rorschach had made, and he's going back and he's trying to talk to Rorschach and explain things. The problem is, it seems as though he's just not listening, and pancakes be damned. Man, it's a shame to see those pancakes go to waste. Pancakes be damned, Rorschach ain't having nothing to do with it, because we get to see the trauma that he saw, this new version, this facsimile of Rorschach. We get to see how suddenly Firefly may have had something to do with this, or was it actually Killer Moth? It's hard to tell. I'm imagining that it's Firefly, though. I'm imagining that it's Killer Moth, though, somehow. It's wicked, man. The way that all of this is going down, it's freaking wicked, and it's sad. Yeah, this has to be Killer Moth. You know what I'm saying? We get to see how that's actually what Rorschach sees now, the new version of Rorschach sees at this point. Seeing his father burned alive right in front of him. Wonder Woman is pretty crucial here too. She's fighting against the Russian heroes, which are basically just villains every place else. Makes sense. Gigantic Creeper, and more importantly, Black Adam. And she just can't handle Black Adam. Nobody should be able to handle Black Adam. His strengths are Superman's weaknesses. If it wasn't for Superman being Superman, there's no way that Superman could win. But I may have pointed out, he's Superman. That's what he does. He wins. Like a superpowered version of Captain America. So we get a better understanding. Before we get into the really nitty-gritty stuff here, it's interesting to see the background of what Luthor is talking to Lois Lane about. The John that's in those pictures, clearly this is John Osterman in his happier times, imagining with Silk Spectre, the second version, who he's actually happy with her back in this time before his accident happened. But all of this is just completely out of time. So it's, we saw that he was talking to that one Carver dude, and I'm imagining that he's talking with this guy once a year, every year, giving him his future to get some sense of bearing for himself, so that Dr. Manhattan himself can see, or at least have some kind of a tether, because in this new universe, his powers aren't the same. He needs some kind of a tether, and he winds up just making, randomly, John Carver that tether. So Carver can benefit from this. He can also not benefit from this. It depends, that's all on him. That's all on him. But him acting on his future as predicted by, as seen by John Osterman, aka Dr. Manhattan, this is what's causing I guess he's like the test subject, so to speak, or he's the patient zero, so that Dr. Manhattan can look at this and say, okay, I've told him this, and he's caused these things to happen, and these things to happen, and all these different veerings of what was originally supposed to happen. So, okay, we're good now. I can now see everything else that's happening as long as I talk to this guy once a year. But with him not around anymore, he's what, gonna have to find somebody else? Or has he surpassed that need? Either way, now he's ready to face Superman. The moment where he does that, actually the 7 seconds or so before he does, pretty epic. Pretty damn epic. I love this. The final picture, that Lex Luthor sees and shows. I'm going to show you this as a spoiler. I still got more to talk about, but this is kind of crucial. Here it comes. I think that for the most part, most of us know there's going to be some new comic book fans who are reading this and looking at this picture going, what is this? There's an image of the first appearance, I think it's Flash Comics issue #1. The first image where they actually show the Jay Garrett Flash and the first appearance of the Barry Allen Flash. And they're both running towards this dude with the wall, and it's a completely different angle. This is more of a, in this book, they show the camera angle, like there's a camera watching them as this happens. But we see from the comic book cover, it's a more face-front kind of cover, and it's, it's a really iconic cover. I suggest looking that up. Look up like first appearance of Barry Allen. You should get there. So seeing that was just, that alone just, I had to sit back. I put the comic book down. I had to sit back and just embrace it all and digest it, because it was starting to get overwhelming. It was starting to get a little bit too much. That's how I felt reading this entire comic book. I'm trying to pick little parts from my memories of the comic book that started 2.5 years ago. But, when I was just a young channel, you know what I'm saying? I just started around, just started doing comic book reviews not too long before that, for crying out loud. And this one, just picking little parts that I remember. Going to have to go back. After issue 12 comes out, I'm going to have to go back and just reread all 12 issues. I told you guys, I said multiple times, this is going to be amazing once they're all out. But for now, it's hard to justify anything that's happening. But starting to realize I got a better memory than I thought. So more stuff happens in here. Saturn Girl. Saturn Girl is probably the most messed up thing here. Mind you, Saturn Girl is from the future. She can't see the future. She's a telepath, an extremely powerful telepath. She's a prisoner and she's the future prisoner for Vate, Ozymandias. The past prisoner is the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott. So the past won't be erased. The future, however, will be changed. That's fine. It kind of works into, I imagine, what Bendis is doing right now with, for crying out loud, the Legion of Superheroes. In the meantime, there's a ring that has to, a Thanagarian nth metal, or excuse me, an nth metal flight ring that needs to be reclaimed at this point. Worst case scenario, if I'm Vate, I'm just like, yoink, and I'm flying around with that thing. Let me tell you something. This is sick, dude. She winds up, she's saying, like, you'll never hurt Superman. He's too powerful. He's the one who shaped the future. You know what I'm saying? You'll never make people forget about Superman. When Ozymandias says, that's not actually my plan, let me ask you something. Let me throw that question right back at you. Does Superman remember you? It shows that the future was radically changed. It also shows that once she realizes that Superman doesn't remember her, she also realizes that her future is gone. Doesn't mean that she'll cease to exist. She ceases to exist here. I don't know what happens to her, but she ceases to exist here. Maybe she's gone forever. Maybe she's forgotten, much like what do you call it? The new Flash was forgotten. Too many people with too many flashes, too much, happening in the multiverses. But we see how Superman really did always have something major to do with every single crisis, didn't he? Whether it's singing it away or the crisis away, whatever. The idea is that Superman was pivotal to all this stuff. But there had to have been some major reason, some outlying reason why all this stuff was happening, not just a big blue hand changing things at the beginning of Rebirth. Turns out that big blue hand was there for a lot of things, a lot of crises where everything was changed. It's interesting to see because this really isn't any different from what Marvel Comics is doing, except in this one case. We're getting to see all of these different universes. The Superman that we're seeing now technically isn't the same as the Superman that we saw in the Rebirth, which is good because I don't like that version of Superman. Even though he's been bonded with the Rebirth Superman in the Superman comics, at the end of the day, it's not the same one, right? And before that, it sure as hell wasn't. The post-crisis wasn't the same. Pre-crisis wasn't the same. All these different versions of Superman, Earth 2, so on, etc., they're simply not the same. There's an Earth 23, right? There's all these different versions. There's Superman Prime. All these versions are simply not the same. But when they all start, when we start looking at them, what happens? This is Schrodinger's law. And it's interesting that there's a cat involved in this. Vate's cat. Ozymandias' cat. Can't remember this thing's name. Ancient Egyptian thing. And it's funny that we actually see the Egyptian pyramids back here because it shows that, in a sense, I think that they're trying to show that, oh, look, this is what's what. Bulbus, what the frick was this stupid red cat's name anyway? Ozymandias' cat. Bubastis. This freaking cat, man. Now that, remember, this is not the original Bubastis. This is the clone of Bubastis, as we saw in an earlier Doomsday Clock. I think it was 7. I think it was issue number 7, if I'm remembering correctly. We saw that it's actually a clone. He destroyed this clone. Ozymandias destroyed this clone with Dr. Manhattan. Manhattan, of course, is going to reform and just look and be like, psh, and walk away. But Bubastis was reconstituted. And when he came back, it wound up having the exact same powers as Dr. Manhattan. So now we've technically got a superpowered Ozymandias because smartest being in the world. Likely even smarter than Lex Luthor. We'll see. We'll see. Luthor is wondering what his connection is with Superman, why they keep on crossing paths, why this is so important. It can't be just jealousy. There's got to be something more there. So he's basically having an existential crisis. And to be honest, who better to have that existential crisis with than Lois Lane? Now, the story continues even more. We get Hoyt. What the heck was this person's name? we get the story. Here we go. Hollis. Good morning, Miss Hollis. Anybody who read the original Watchmen, I've got it around here somewhere. I actually keep it out so I can reference it every so often. Some of my other stories, I reference it a lot. But either way, it's like right down here somewhere in one of my book piles. Hollis is Silk Spectre 2. He got together with Night Owl afterwards. This is why you could tell that this was written by a European, Alan Moore specifically, because Dr. Manhattan was so in love with her, right? All these pictures, like these pictures kind of represent some way of, a staple for him. And every year, someplace, he's going to put these someplace. This is, like I said, this is a part of his tether, like with Carver. At one point he sees, we saw this earlier, like what was this, issue 4, I think it was, where Dr. Manhattan sees Mime and Marionette robbing a bank. And it's like, oh my God, she's pregnant. I'm not going to kill her. We don't know what's going on in his mind, but we know what they're all speculating. Ozymandias points out, and several of my viewers have pointed out also, Dr. Manhattan has killed a pregnant woman before. Or, he's watched a pregnant woman die, and it's like, whatever, man. Seeing someone who's alive being killed in front of you and seeing someone who's pregnant killed in front of you, if you see two people being killed, two people are being killed. That's that. But why was this important? Why did he stop? It turns out that Mime and Marionette, that baby, that son, eventually, the Hollises, so Silk Spectre 2 and Night Owl, when they get married, when they decide to be with each other forever, they adopt a kid. They adopt a little boy. That's the little boy. And it makes them happy. It makes her happy. This is why I say this was written by a European, because a European can, I just, it's not in American culture. I'll just say that. A guy walks in and his girl, with somebody else, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to freaking kill this person. I'm going to kill them both because it hurts me. As opposed to a European who will often look at something like this and say, well, it's making her happy. Well, I clearly don't want to be with her anymore. But, you know what I'm saying? You just walk away and just be happy that they're happy. And this is especially important considering the fact that Dr. Manhattan can't really be with her that way anyway, right? So instead of just stringing her along, he's happy that she's found happiness. And here's just another moment in time where she's found happiness. This is such an absolutely amazing comic book. I'm completely beside myself with how amazing it is. Guys, definitely get this. Definitely get this because this is just way too good. And there's more in here. There's a lot more in here. There's a point where you just have to look at every single panel because there's something in almost every single panel that you might not otherwise notice. I'm positive there's a lot of stuff that I missed in here. There's a lot of things that I just didn't comment on because there's just way too much to comment on. But there's just so much in here that I'm positive I missed a lot. And if you guys want to, throw in, tell me which page, which panel, I'll check it out. Because there's a whole lot in here that I'm certain I missed. I can't wait till issue 12 comes out so I can just read all of them. And just, wow, praise the hell out of this book. Guys, I'm out. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.